Sag Harbor. And our goal for today's conversation is to talk about what Ray's family business, this restaurant, is doing and how they are coping in this time of COVID-19, some of the issues that have come up for them, and some of the issues that they are considering when they reopen eventually and are open again for their customers. So Ray, tell us some of the things that you have noticed from your family's restaurant, some of the consumer trends, how you pivoted to address consumer concerns in this era of physical distancing, and some of the things that you are thinking about when you reopen in the coming, hopefully, weeks.
Okay, so when everything was first announced, we had a temporary period of closure for a few days and then started doing curbside pickup. It's the closest that we can get to contactless delivery. We allowed customers to view the menu online, to call in their order and pay over the telephone, and then they would actually drive in and park in the back of our restaurant, tell us what make and model of car they were driving. We would hand them the bag and that would be it. Nothing came from them to us. It was really a great system. We could handle a lot of orders that way, especially because we would tell them when to come pick their order up. So really it could go very fast. We were getting a lot of orders out. One thing that I noticed was a lot of customers wanted to get meals not just for one or two people as if they were dining in, they were also feeding families at home. So they were looking more for things that they could kind of serve as a family, and some options that were a little bit more cost sensitive, because instead of feeding two people, some of them were feeding 6 or even 7, including children. The children's menu did excellent for curbside pickup. A lot of people were getting things like burgers and chicken tenders. Desserts went over great. We were selling chocolate chip cookies and hazelnut biscotti. So that was things where people usually weren't getting dessert in restaurant, especially during lunchtime. That was more of a dinner thing for people to get dessert. People were coming in, they were getting 6 orders of chocolate chip cookies, and that would be it.
So underlying this, and some context that we can provide for people who aren't familiar with the restaurant is that your family's restaurant is considered to be sort of higher end fine dining for the industry, right? And so some of the things that I've heard, in conversations with the New York State Restaurant Association is that it's hard for fine dining restaurants to pivot to a takeout delivery model if they're used to having customers come in and have this higher end dining experience. And it sounds like this was the opposite of what your family's restaurant experienced. So what are some of the unique things that you implemented? You talked about this sort of online ordering or by phone ordering system where people didn't have to hand over cash or a card as one change that you implemented. What other things do you think helped you succeed initially in pivoting from this higher end experience to takeout and curbside delivery?
I think that the alterations we made to our menu, so we did not offer things that would not work with curbside pickup, such as, we had something, it was a braised beef short rib.
Delicious.
Polenta. It is delicious, but the polenta, when it sits in a to-go box for about 5 minutes, that's all it takes, it almost gets like
a brick.
Yeah, so we had definitely a limited menu. Usually we have a huge full page menu. We limited the items down to things that we knew that we could do well to go. We weren't focusing necessarily on what were our favorite menu items. We did take steak off. Steak is another one of those things that in person, it's delicious, it's great, but to go, not so much.
Right.
We also would have a lot of liquor sales in person. People would always get a bottle of wine while dining in our dining room. We were doing discounts on bottles of wine. Our house wine was 10% off. And we were doing cocktails to go, which was something that, a lot of businesses started doing. That was helpful. But as far as transitioning from being more of a high-end restaurant to avoiding kind of that overly cheap to go type thing where it's like burgers and fries. It was more so our menu options that we were just a little bit more conscious about. We thought about what would work well in to-go box off of our regular menu. What could we add? We did add a few new lunch sandwiches. Like we had a turkey BLT on there. We had a corned beef Reuben, which all this happened around St. Patrick's Day. We had ordered a ton of corned beef.
Sounds delicious.
So we made use of it. And like my mom says, when the chandelier goes out, you light the candles, and that is what we did.
Yeah, I love hearing the ingenuity and how you switch things up. But it sounds like you also have a very unique staff at your disposal. So I know we had talked about your chef, both your head chef and also your pastry chef being incredibly talented. And so I'm sure this has been a time for them to innovate.
Yes.
And offer, some different things that might not have been on the menu, but that transport well. So I know that you told me the other day that your family's restaurant is closed, and you had actually closed not because the business was not successful, because you were, by all accounts, being very successful with your pivot, and we're seeing some good results financially from that. But your family's restaurant had chosen to close for moral and ethical reasons. So what was some of the logic underlying that, and how the restaurant plays such a strong role in the community in Sag Harbor?
So we are literally located in what we call the heart of Sag Harbor. If you look on Main Street, we are like smack dab in the middle. Walking down, we're one of like the first places that you'll kind of notice. So we have always cared a lot about the community in Sag Harbor. And recently, we've noticed that in town, social distancing is not exactly being followed, which we understand. It is hard to stay
at home. It's hard for people to stay home. It's hard not to see their loved ones.
Exactly. So
even though it's essential.
Yeah, what was happening was people were coming and they were getting food to go, and then they were taking the police tape off the benches in town and sitting there with their friends and having a meal in public, and not adhering to social distancing standards, which made it kind of awkward for us because we were trying our best to encourage social distancing, like come get food, take it home, eat with your families, as are all the other restaurants in Sag Harbor. And I think everyone's in a kind of a tough position right now, because we want to be there for the community, but I think that the best way that we can be there for them is by not being there at this point in time, by not making it an option to come get food and eat in town. And not that we had seating available, but we do have multiple parks in Sag Harbor, benches everywhere that people were utilizing, which would be great in any other time frame. But right now we're thinking that the best way that we can encourage social distancing is by temporarily pulling out just until the curve starts to go back down, and then we can reopen.
So, one of the things that's so fascinating to me is it sounds like Sag Harbor is this very intimate community. And I know that your restaurant was one of the first to close for sort of these moral, ethical reasons. But now it sounds like other businesses as well have made the decision to potentially shut down or alter their service so that the community can adhere to physical distancing.
Yes, there was a lot of chatter, especially after we were the first ones to close. We were also the first ones to close when everything first began. And everyone else, we were the first to start transitioning to closing our dining room, doing curbside pickup. So now that we've gone ahead and done that, a lot of places are talking about doing it for maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. What is the time frame for it? We definitely don't want to miss the start of the summer season. Sag Harbor is in the Hamptons. It is a very seasonal business for almost everyone, including ourselves. So we definitely don't want to miss that big first weekend. At this point in time, no one can predict what that'll exactly look like, but there's a lot of talk just in all the local business about what the best way to proceed is.
Right. So that brings brings me, I guess, to one of my final points, unless something else comes up as we're chatting. So it came out yesterday that the governor has extended the stay-at-home orders till May 15th. And I know that the town, is sort of rearing up and gearing up for this seasonal enterprise. So as you think about reopening potentially later in May or maybe June or later into the summer, depending on these orders, what are some of the concerns that you've had as a restaurant? I know that we've spoken about physically removing tables from the dining room so that you can adhere to physical distancing in the dining room even when you do open up. But what are you all thinking about?
So aside from, we do have the tables literally removed from the restaurant. They are not there. We are at 25% capacity maximum. No matter what, the tables are non-touchable. They're not even at the restaurant. But as far as that
and this
goes,
is for when you do reopen. Yes.
Yeah, when we do reopen, of course. When we do reopen, I think we're still going to be incredibly cautious. So we switched over to staff wearing gloves and masks. I don't believe that having servers wearing masks will be a comforting thing, but it is something that is on the table. Just as things move forward, we might go back and initially just do curbside pickup before actually reopening our restaurant. Just not to jump right back into things. One of the major concerns that we have is if we reopen, how do we know if it's too soon? And how do we not wait too long where we're behind the ball?
Right.
Reopen. And then what happens if, we have to close again? How do we proceed then? Do we go back to contactless pickup, which we do plan on doing as soon as we are comfortable with the way that the numbers are going? And of course, we are in communication with other businesses in town, in surrounding towns, of when that point exactly will be. We might keep that open as an option throughout the summer if we can. Capacity in the dining room, but also because we expect that people are going to be scared for a while.
Yeah, consumers probably will be afraid. I mean, saying life will return as normal probably isn't realistic for maybe even a year and a half or longer.
Exactly.
So I think that is incredibly interesting. And I think this question of what do we do with potentially reopening and closing again, is an important question and probably one that we don't have excellent answers for. It might rely on this continual pivot, to contactless delivery or having the menu potentially be trimmed back even when you do reopen your dining room, so you're not trying to serve, this wealth of meals.
Right.
So I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. I think, to the extent that we can, in the College of Business, can help you think through these issues as they come up or help with any other efforts, we're more than happy to do that. And I look forward to hearing what the restaurant continues to do in the future.
Of course.
All right, I'm gonna stop recording.